Yo, what's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Masters of Fate podcast, where we talk about vision, purpose, and values, and actually how to achieve what you want out of your life and how to identify it and define it. And today I have a really special guest with me, Brian Donovan, really good friend, systems expert, and dude with a handsome ass beard. So, Brian, thank you so much for being here, man.
Thank you, Andrew. It's a pleasure to be on here. It's an honor. Really excited for everyone that's listening. Stick with us, and I'm just grateful to be showing up here this morning.
Heck yeah, dude. Let's hop right into the meat and potatoes. Before we hopped on this podcast, we were talking about uh, self mastery, business mastery, leadership mastery, and talking about that on this podcast. So I'd love for you to dive into what does that mean to you, and why is it important to you?
Yeah, I would say, with self mastery, business mastery, leadership mastery, I'd say when I started my journey of self development like a decade ago, it started after watching my dad go bankrupt, and then me trying to follow in his footsteps and start different businesses, whether it was network marketing or agencies. But it ultimately led to me investing in myself and reading hundreds of personal development books, investing in thousands and tens of thousands of dollars worth of self-development programs that were all a huge ROI on my growth. And, mastering myself, inner mastery has been a mission of mine, because at the core of it, my why is to lead myself and young entrepreneurs to inner and outer freedom. So like inner freedom being free from the limiting beliefs and patterns and behaviors that are holding you back, and outer freedom meaning mastering the creation of wealth, the creation of impact, the creation of profits. And so I've been dead set over the last decade on this mission, and I truly believe that no man is free that's not a master of himself. And so it starts with your self mastery, and particularly like the three areas in my life that I focused heavily on is 1, my self-image, 2, my subconscious, and then 3, like my self-sabotaging in the moment pleasure patterns, right? So instead of being like committed, like you just kind of ditch off and you go and, hey, this short-term pleasure is better than this more long-term vision.
Yeah.
It's constantly course correcting. And I'm sure, it's like the self-image, subconscious, and self-sabotaging patterns are the 3 areas that I just constantly am reprogramming, right? To use your company and what you're doing, because we're not programmed to work on those 3 areas. And I think if you start with your self-image and your subconscious, meaning like your subconscious in a way, like what in your past hasn't been healed, what in your past hasn't been forgiven, what haven't you been grateful for that's happened to you, for you, that you maybe caused, that is still driving your behaviors today. And so I spent a lot of time working on those subconscious, because I think that 90% of our life is driven from our subconscious mind. And so how do we get in there? And you have great tools in your brotherhood to help guys excavate that. And it's like, how do we really accept, fully, completely accept who we are, where we've been, what we've done, and come to this super present moment, and then create our identity from that? Right? What do you think? Like, that's kind of what
Dude, I love it. I have a few thoughts. My favorite book is The Alchemist, and one of my favorite quotes from that book is, when we strive to become better, everything around us becomes better too.
Yeah.
And I think I went through this, a lot of people go through this, where they're just focused on the external and like, oh, I got to please this person and I've got to take care of this person, and forget about themselves. When if they actually just take care of their energy, fill their own cup up, they would actually serve those people better. Like, I am attracted to happy people. I'm not attracted to people pleasers. So like, if more people just focused on making them their own self happy, then they would provide happiness to other people. So I totally resonate with you that it's like starts with the self-mastery. And then I liked your internal and external, and starting with the internal mastery.
Yeah. And it's like you're looking at where, because if you start with understanding that you are a people pleaser, or that you fear vulnerability, or you don't feel important. These were things that maybe I even probably experienced in my own life and that I had to heal myself. It's and once you start to uncover where those things got pressed upon you in different parts of your life that you then suppressed, that you can then actually release through self-acceptance and non-judgmental observation, that clears out the 90% that's driving your life. And then you can reset. You can then essentially reprogram, like you're saying, and then work on your self-image essentially. And what I mean by self-image, a book that changed my life was The Power of Awareness by Neville. And it talks a lot about the two most powerful words in the language, I believe, which is I am. And so whatever you put after I am is how you basically are, and that's how your world is going to be created around you, right? And so as James Allen talks about, like, your environment is just a looking glass, right? It's just a reflection of your internal world. And so I believe that your environment's created based off of whatever you put at the end of I am. And so once you clear out what's in the subconscious, and then you can reformulate your identity with an I am statement, doing the work on that, that's then how you can assume and create the reality around you. You can assume the
100%.
Right?
Yeah.
Right.
I actually went through something recently over the past year when I was doing, I still do somatic therapy, but during one of the sessions, where it was one of those I am statements. And I created my own methodology around internal, external, and life beliefs. And what we have are these core beliefs about ourselves, about other people, and about life. And they're pressed upon us when we're growing up in childhood by our parents, by our peers, by our teachers. And then that becomes our personality in adulthood, typically. But we actually have the power to change those I am statements, they are statements, life is statements, to fit our vision and who we want to become. So one of those I am statements that I kept telling myself, what I call an internal belief, is that the voice in the back of my head when I was in conversation with people was, Andrew, don't speak up, because you don't want people to think you're selfish or narcissistic or you only care about yourself. And that was running in the back of my head, not very conscious of it, but I found it during somatic therapy. And that was something my mom used to tell me growing up. Andrew, you only think about yourself. Andrew, you're so selfish. That sort of stuff. And then that became a core internal belief of mine. So what I was able to do over the past year is really tap into the truth of it, of I deeply care about people. I love people. I want to help people grow. So it's important for me to speak and share what I've learned and all of that. And I've gone from an introvert personality type to an extrovert personality type just by switching that core belief that was running in the back of my head. Yeah.
I mean, that radically impacts how you then create your reality again. And I love what you said. I am, people are, life is. That I like that framework, that method, like those three things, I believe is what your paradigm is built off of, and that's what your worldview is built off of. That's what your world is built off of. And so making those lists of those things, making new decisions on how you end those things, is how you then create a new epic reality. It's beautiful to do that work on yourself and use the different modalities to ground it.
And it's so cool. It's just our beliefs and then identifying our values, what really lights us up and keeps us in alignment, and then creating a vision around those things that we want to create out of our life. And have you ever read the 7 Hermetic Laws by chance?
I do. I have it in my notes. Yes.
I fucking love it. Like the law, like one of the most important ones. They're all super important, but the principle of cause and effect, that everything we're doing right now is leading to who we become in the future. And everything we did in the past is leading to this moment right here, right now. And that's why like the present moment right here, right now is so special, because there was no mistake of getting to this point. It was all cause and effect, starting from our life happening, but even before then, where just everything came into existence. Like everything has led up to this moment just because of cause and effect.
And that's why the minutes,
important.
that's why the minutes matter, right? These moments matter. That's why we got to be great in the moment. Because it's like literally what we're doing right now, what we're feeding ourselves, what we're thinking of ourselves, the belief we have ourselves, the values that are driving ourselves, that's going to bring our vision to life, or that's going to lead us astray, right? Like the journey of 1,000 miles begins with one single step, but what happens if you're headed in the wrong direction? And so you sometimes need to reevaluate what is driving you, because way too many people, myself included at the beginning, are driven by desire. And like, desire is that contract to be unhappy until you get what you want. Whoever said that quote, like, that is true. And I do believe when Napoleon Hill talks about desire being the starting point of all riches, I do believe in that. But what I believe in more is letting go of the desire, turning that desire into goals and concrete steps, but then letting go and acting as if and assuming as if you already have that. And this way you can act from a relaxed, present moment awareness, rather than put all this pressure on yourself and be serious all the time. Right?
Yeah.
Like, too many people are plagued by over seriousness, especially in the United States. I think that they need to be more playful and let go of the pressure. And that comes when you assume, and you're not driven sometimes by desires that aren't even yours.
Most of the time. That was me for a long ass time. Yeah. I wanted to build a 7-figure business because everybody else was doing it. And I did it, and I wasn't any happier when I hit it. I was more confident in myself. Like that was huge, like the confidence piece.
I did the same thing. When I was like, when we've crossed the multiple, driven millions and millions of revenue, it's like after that, I'm like, I think when I sold my first $25,000 mastermind program with my partner, I was like terrified leading up to that, almost like, oh my God, am I going to do this? And then I did it, and I'm like, okay, now then it's 50,000, then it's the 100,000 once, then it's like, we got to come back to, again, what is the beliefs and the values and the vision, because it doesn't make you any happier if you're doing things that you don't truly want to be doing, that isn't in your highest excitement. It's almost like the balloon just pops when you hit this revenue mark. I'm like, yeah, but then you have more overhead, you have more expenses, you have more responsibilities. Like, hello, life gets increasingly more complicated here. So,
that's so funny. Yeah. I'd love to go. You brought up goals and goal setting and the external desires and actually getting there. I'd love to go into your process of goal setting and actually attaining those desires.
Yeah. So personally, I've been writing down goals for a decade. I've hit pretty much every goal that I've set. It's because I just look at things in 90, 30, 7, 1. 90 days, 30 days, 7 days, 1 day. I just reverse engineer 12 weeks. Right? A great book for business, great book for life is 12-week year. I think that book is fantastic and capitalize on it. I didn't really, I've already been doing that, but I think he conceptualizes and articulates it really well. But writing down those 90-day goals, and I would write down goals, mind, body, spirit, business. That was my framework. Similar to how you have your 4 core. What are they again? Mental. What are the core 4?
Energy, mindset, relationships, finance.
Yeah. So get really grounded in the current reality of where you're at. Score yourself quick, 0 to 10. 0, you suck, you're in your ego. 10, you're fulfilled and self-sustaining and operating from source, so to speak. And you're just trying to close the gap, always trying to close the gap. That's all I'm trying to do. I have a goal. It's not too big, because I think that most people, great, vision's big, do the 5-year, 25-year vision, do it huge. But I think a great predictor of a leader and someone that can actually really run their own life is how realistic and predictable their goals are. Too many people operate from this 10x mindset that's permeated through our culture, and they're saying I want to go from 10,000 to 100,000 in 1 month, or 100,000 to 10 million, and yeah, it's doable, and it's most of the time very unrealistic.
Dude, I think it's 10x your vision, but like don't 10x your goals, your short-term goals, those 90-day goals. Let's go from 10K per month to $1 million a month in 90 days. It's like, you're gonna fall short.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that obviously we know the best way to build confidence is through evidence. And so, and the best way to motivate, the best way to motivate people is through achievement and recognition. And so if you want to build your confidence through evidence and motivate your people, you best be setting realistic, predictable goals that are measurable, that are in line with what's going to happen in 90 days. And it's almost like what happens is on that path, we get too distracted. Different desires come up, and we diffuse our most powerful force, which is our focus, right? Warren Buffett talks about it. Charlie Munger talks about it. Focus, but we get distracted. Positive distractions everywhere. Let me go check this out. Instead of tabling it. That's why you need to do your deep thinking before you set those 90-day goals. Do the deep thinking, do the deep reflection and contemplation. Once the goal is set, act and say no to everything else. Because all these ideas that come up midweek or every 2 weeks, all those course corrections, maybe you and I can handle it because we're like, and the listeners as well, like high performing like machines. But if other people can't handle sometimes the speed that we're working at. And so we got to be careful. Just because we can course correct and build doesn't mean everyone else can. That's why we're the entrepreneurs. That's why we're leading. So we got to table some of those ideas to make progress on your 90 days. Then it's, let me reevaluate. Am I where I am? Am I doing what's in my highest excitement, in my highest alignment? That's
100
my life.
Oh, I fucking love that. And it made me think of it's in Traction, and I forget the other book, but the analogy of having rocks, like the things you do your thinking time of what your goals are for your 90 days, for your year, for your life, and you put those rocks into the jar. So when you have water, when you have sand, when you have life coming at it, you have the rocks in there. Like the jar can be filled up and the rocks will all still be in there. But if we don't put the rocks in first, the water, the sand gets in there, and then the rocks won't be able to fit into the jar, which is our life.
And that's a beautiful analogy. And don't try to put too many rocks. You can't put a ton of rocks in one small jar. And then you're talking about a pool. And then you're putting rocks in this pool. And that's what too many people are doing, is they have too many freaking priorities and too many rocks. And then there's no progress, which is defeating.
Dude, because most people don't know themselves. And I didn't know myself for the first 28 years of my life. Like it's just been coming through identifying my values, my beliefs, my life vision, not just my business vision. That has allowed me to allocate the amount of rocks that I can put in the right amount of time. But I think it all starts with what you say, self-mastery, and really nailing that in first. Like, 100%. Who the fuck am I? You know?
Yeah. You got to know who you are. You got to know how you're ending those statements, those beliefs, those values, and relieving yourself of the subconscious baggage that you've been carrying until this point. And then you can build the foundation. And then it's a couple of rocks. It's a couple of priorities. I know the thing with us as high performers is that we are so fucking confident. We're overconfident that we overcommit. And so our confidence, we're overcommitted, then we're spread thin. And that is why we're like, oh, we're making an inch of progress rather than going deep, essential, right? One thing that would make our lives easier and better and more productive. That's what we got to eliminate down to. So it takes evaluation. It takes life evaluation.
Yeah, and I think on top of that is knowing what season we're in. What's our gap in our life? So like the 4 seasons that I've identified are health, wealth, relationships, and spirituality.
Mm.
And like I was so depressed from 18 to 24 years old. And the thing that shifted my life was setting a 90-day goal to quit drinking and to lose 20 pounds in 90 days.
Mm.
And my nervous system was jacked up. Like my energy was jacked up. I was so in my head. And setting that, I didn't know what I was doing exactly. Like I didn't know about these seasons, but by shifting my health, it shifted my energy where I had more focus. I could be more productive. And then I went into a wealth building season and started my first business, quit my job, started an agency, grew it for 2 years, then started a coaching business and sold it last year. So went into that wealth building season, but it wouldn't have been possible without that 90-day goal. And I love that you brought that up.
Yeah,
And
that shifts, because most people show up every single day in a default setting. It's just their default mode. And so you made a radical decision to shift that state and that physiological state that you're in.
mm-hmm.
And that led to, hey, I now have a core foundation. My body's my temple, my health is important. And that gave you that confidence. And I've done the same things in my life, challenges and different health rituals, different experiments across the board to see what works for me. Because no experiment can prove me right, but every single experiment can prove me wrong. Right. And so I want to know what doesn't work for me. Right.
Mm-hmm.
What is the complete opposite way? Like the inverting things is also super key. Like looking at the opposite of, like, if I want to build wealth, what do I need to do to sabotage that? And if I wanted to be healthy, how would I be super unhealthy? And I would write down these list of things that could lead to me being unhealthy, eating excessively. The list goes on. And so
just do the opposite.
Just do the opposite.
Yeah,
exactly. Do the things you should be doing. Yeah.
I think that's a really important point to hit for the listeners. And Charlie Munger talks about it a lot. Alex Hormozy talks about it a lot, is like thinking in the inverse of like what isn't working, what wouldn't work, or what would sabotage this, and then writing a list of those things down, and then write another list of doing the inverse of that. And that's basically what you want to do to achieve what you want to achieve.
And that's a lot of what a lot of the personal development books talk about. Right.
Yeah, I love it.
Do the things you should be doing is essentially how I sum it up for myself.
Yeah. Dude, I'd love to go into leadership, where we've talked a lot about self-mastery, now about leading other people. And how do you define it and how do you do it?
Oh my goodness. Wow. I'm excited to talk about this. So how would I define leadership? I would say it's basically igniting and multiplying the energy of the people that are around you. And really just allowing them to grow and flourish with your direction. And how I get there is there's a couple of different levels to it. Most of the time inside of companies, at the beginning, you're creating stability. So you have to take over and create stability. And these are like these levels of leadership in my mind, in a framework that I use. It's to ignite and multiply the potential around the table. First, we got to take over and create stability. Second, we got to tell them what to do, right? Then we have to train them, and then we can coach them, and then we can support them, right? And so those 4 levels, most leaders just want to be in the supportive, hey, I'm here for you. When the best leaders that I've found, one, don't delegate what they don't know, and they actually get in the trenches with the team, and they take over to create some stability. Then they tell, train, coach, support. And so we want to be at the coaching and supporting, but we haven't told or trained. And so in leadership, what I've found in the last 18 months of having 50 to 70 different kind of employees and contractors, it also comes across with my ways of being, And so if I'm stressed, or if I'm feeling like there's pressure, or if any way I'm off my keel and I'm not totally in center, commanding my center, and if I'm in any bit of chaos and that leaks out, that can shut people down. It can really demotivate people. And so let's look at the invert of what leadership isn't. Leadership isn't ultimately barking orders at people. It isn't being passive aggressive. It isn't demanding. It's none of those things. And I've seen different styles of leadership, but I don't see that stuff works when you're just briefing all day and you're just telling people all the time what to do. Instead, getting in the trenches, asking them how they're doing, seeing how they are doing their own role, letting them, like, asking open-ended questions, right? And, you know, on submarines in the Navy, weapons officers, they do this thing called certifying instead of briefing, right? And so if you have a crew of six guys, 6 girls on the submarine, they don't, the weapons officer isn't just saying, hey, you go do this, you do that, you do this, you do that, right? There's too much room for error. Instead, he's going one by one, asking them a set of questions on how they're going to perform their role underneath this particular situation, goes through, certifies all of them, then looks them all in the eyes and asks if we're good to go. And so that is how I prefer leadership to be in my own company and myself, is certifying instead of briefing, really getting in and knowing the role just as good as they do. It's just as good as they would to perform, in order to give feedback, because I think feedback is one of the most loving things you can give as a leader to someone else. When you can tell someone they have food in their teeth, like, hey, quick little feedback there, right? And you can really tell them how they're showing up. And it's not easy. It's an art, it's a craft and it's a lifelong journey that I'm just super dedicated to mastering, if God willing. So yeah.
I love that. And I'd love for you to just quickly go over the 4 levels again.
So tell, train, coach, support. Okay. And so that is just so important, especially for entrepreneurs that are at the 6-figure mark, like just cracking 7 figures, like, and being patient with new onboards and all of that, because that would have saved me a hell of a lot of headache, and I would have asked more questions instead of like just telling them what to do in my last business. I think that's super important, to be able to go through those phases and know what phase you're in with a certain employee, to master that, to get to the 8-figure, 9-figure mark, is leadership, those 4 stages, and knowing how to do them. I couldn't agree more. And too many people want things to be done a certain way, and they have too much control, and they haven't first clarified how they want to see it and their expectations, and they just don't have these clear agreements, and they're not following those 4 levels. And we think that we can just operate in level 3 and level 4, when really there's even a 0 level sometimes where we have to take over and create that stability. And then it's creating the clarity, and then it's creating the collaboration, and then it's creating the commitment. And that leads to your culture. And we know that culture will eat strategy for breakfast, and we know that culture sinks the ship. And it's about getting the culture right through celebration, through incentives, through pay, through bonuses, through different types of rewards, so people feel recognized and they're achieving progress. They have total clarity on their role. The only way to do that is through those 4 levels of leadership. That then boils into your culture. So we got constantly an improving process to evaluate those things and eliminate what's not necessary.
Yep. Processes, systems for like business, also personal life, which I'd love to jump into that with you as well. What are like the processes and systems that you have for your own life to optimize your self-mastery?
I could say I have I've tested multiple different systems for myself. One, I've done the really strict morning routines, waking up on time and going and doing the dozen things, the breath work, the meditation, the
David, the David Goggins waking up
David
at 5
Goggins intensive
professional workout. Yeah,
I really these days I love to do what's on my heart. I've created a lot of space in my life to be able to just do what's on my heart, because I really do think that my heart really does drive my reality and drives a lot of my results and a lot of my happiness. And so I'm looking on just fine tuning more how I can get closer to source and how I can get closer to the voice in my head that is for me and isn't the little devil on my shoulder that's trying to self-sabotage, but the one that actually wants to guide me in the right direction. And so building a closer relationship with that is, because it hasn't ever led me wrong, that intuition. And so that's where I'm at now, working on that. And, you still have the core pillars. I still think that meditation's super core. I still think that, obviously exercise and nutrition and hot tubs and cold plunges and those things are necessary to keep in peak performance, so to speak. And so I think the best work that I've ever done is in brotherhoods and in communities like you run, Andrew, honestly, like really having somatic and cathartic releases and really getting into what that anger and that rage is in there. Like, it's not so much about having my particular schedule hour to hour and task to task, because that's the fucking 1%. The 99% that needs to happen is the work that you do, is the releases, is the subconscious work, and then life becomes drastically more easier and simpler when we have
100%.
So,
And dude, I love that. There's actually a mastermind I joined recently. I still joined a bunch of masterminds, coaching programs, that sort of stuff, more so for the community than the content. I just like to pay into communities where other people are paying, so I can surround myself with high level people. But I was on a coaching call the other day, and it's all about business, all about systems. And they started off with gratitudes. What are you grateful for? I'm like, oh, this is great. And every single one of them, there were 6 people that shared their gratitudes, and we were in a business container. Every single one was about their business. And I'm like, what the fuck? You are missing out on so much of life. And I don't blame them. I was there, like in my last business.
You're just observing.
I'm so grateful that I closed 8 sales last week and that sort of stuff. And it's like when we can actually tap into that energy of gratitude for things that are actually deeply meaningful to us instead of just wealth and the exterior and that sort of stuff, life becomes more beautiful, and like what you said, more tapped into consciousness, alignment, oneness.
And so and sometimes those things that those people are writing down for gratitude are driven by different desires of status and importance and more of a recognition and more of a validation. I'd rather just be a self-validating machine. There's no need to show your Stripe accounts. There's no need to show these numbers. That's not what it's about. It's not what it's about. And what it's about now is being grounded in gratitude. I think that is one of the most powerful forces to bring you what you want. And I think these days it's what I'm really trying to practice is being in a place, and no place to get is kind of what I'm saying to myself. No place to get. I have nothing to get from anyone. I'm already secure, grounded, grateful. I'm good. I don't need to get anything from anyone. And that actually gets myself and people that practice this much further. No place to get gets you much further than any time you can actually try to get something from someone.
I've adopted 100%. And I've adopted Naval Ravikant's definition of happiness being the state in which nothing is missing. Like that is happiness, and what you're striving for and what we all strive for is just like happy, like in this present moment. Like that's all I need right now. And I think to get there is a balance between the masculine and the feminine, which I've dove deep into over the past year, where the masculine being the control, setting those goals, putting those rocks in taking the action, and the feminine being the release of control, going with the flow, listening to our heart, allowing ourselves to get out of our head and into our body. That's why doing breath work and meditation and cold plunges and exercise is so powerful, because it gets us out of our head, into our body, into our feminine, more in flow, more in touch with our hearts. And if more people could just balance their masculine and feminine parts, then they would have the ultimate power for growth and happiness at the same time.
Wow. Well said. I love that. Like,
Yeah.
fantastically articulated. Super good.
Thank you.
Super good.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
That's
it's like,
one thing I want to bring to the world is like knowing, like, there's the principle of gender in the seven Hermetic laws, that it's not sexualized gender. These are parts that are within us and everything around us. And it's the
Yeah.
balance of the masculine parts and the feminine parts that make people powerful and happy and peaceful.
yeah, and more playful. I think a lot of your power does come from this play and from this balance. And too many times in my own life, I put way too much pressure on myself, way too much masculine, way too much go, drive, instead of this balance, finding just a relief in the moment of enjoying the passage of time, enjoying what is right in front of me, being content with the things that are around me, knowing that the ideal is going to come. We're on this journey. It doesn't need to happen right now. And I think a lot of us, if we're in our 20s, I'm in my 20s, we're just so driven to have things immediately. And we don't enjoy this patience, this journey enough, and process enough. Like, this is the fruitful part. Doing this podcast is the part of the fun.
This is it.
Like,
Yep.
This is it. So,
Dude, 100%. And one thing that makes me feel really stupid, and I fucking love that, and it makes me feel like I don't know anything. I've been studying quantum physics for the past 6 months, pretty in depth. And on the quantum world, like what reality is actually based on, like time is irrelevant. It doesn't exist. And if we can get into that energetic state in this moment, what we perceive to be like right now, and what we're finding is more the past, and it makes no sense to me, but the past and the future are running at the same time. And it's like, if we can just get into that energetic state right now and be consistent with it, then it all syncs up to the past, present, future, all in one. And we get the results that we want out of life, or how we actually perceive it. So like studying quantum physics and studying the universe and all of that, it makes no fucking sense to me. But
yeah, what you're touching on, I feel like is driven a lot of my life, is that, and it's in that book that I brought up at the beginning with the power of awareness, which is this the state of the wish fulfilled, energetically assuming the identity. Who do we need to be? That is where we need to focus on. Who do we need to be to then go and do the actions to have the things? It's not what do we need to have or what do we need to do. Who do we need to be? And how can we assume this energetic state and shift ourselves into this energetic state and be an energetic match? That is what it is. How do we be an energetic match to the things that we want to manifest inside of our life? And so,
dude, I love that.
Yeah.
I resonate with that hardcore, and how I think about it is like, what is my life vision? What do I want out of my life? What beliefs do I need to adopt to get to that vision? What skill sets do I need to build within myself to get to that vision? What values are actually in my heart, and what is actually going to drive my growth is my happiness, like being in the moment, being aligned with my values. And then it's just about like adopting those beliefs, installing them inside of ourselves, and building up those skill sets to become that person. Like once we have the life vision, then back from there, it's just those components and surrounding ourselves with the right people that like adopt our vision and love our vision and support
And
us.
that's how you get pulled out of bed in the morning and pulled throughout your life, being in a state of flow and not force, right? And not fear.
Yes.
And so we're operating from this place of flow now because we have this light vision. We're an energetic match to it. We've done the work internally to relieve ourselves of the subconscious baggage that has been bringing us down. We've lifted the anchors out of the water, so to speak. So now that we can drive forward, but now there's an abundance of energy. There's basically a wind at our back, and we're just going, and it's light and it's playful and it's like a dance now instead of war.
Yeah, and dude, since I met you, I could tell like you're fucking tapped into that. And big thing, flow over force. Where I remember in my last business, I was forcing everything. I was focused on the external. I felt like shit, and it was just push, 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 push. And that's why I burnt out. And then I tapped into a season of spirituality by going to an ashram, and a season of relationships by just traveling and meeting people. And I found what flow actually is and what it fucking feels like. And it's about taking care of our own energy. And like now, whenever I get too heady or like I'm focused on building systems, and then it's like, oh, I can't build another system, like it can't have any. I go straight into breath work or exercise or meditation, anything that gets me back into my body. And then that allows me to get back into flow instead of forcing it. I wish I would have known, like, it was just those small things I needed to do to get out ahead.
I love that.
Yeah.
I resonate with that. The way I sum it up for myself, very similarly, it's like anytime I'm doing something mental, I like to do something physical or spiritual and balance it that way.
I love it.
Doing something mental, focusing on whatever it may be, it's then, hey, how can I focus on either physical or spiritual? Get grounded, be in gratitude, energize, exercise, whatever those things are.
It's the simple things. I love it.
Yeah.
Awesome, man. Is there we got only a couple minutes left. Is there anything that you would love to share that we have not shared yet that would be powerful for the audience?
I would just recap for the audience because it's been very valuable. Start with self-mastery. Absolutely. Get around an environment that inspires you. That's big. Put yourself in the places where the opportunities are. Put yourself in the community, the network, the brotherhood that allows you to flourish because you're an emergent. I really do believe that. Emergence is such a fantastic concept of like you just take a seed. It's got to be in the right soil. It's got to have the right water, the right sunlight. We've heard it so many times, and that is how it grows. And you're the same way. And so we got to weed out from our subconscious mind the things that are not working for us anymore. That's basically having us be at war with ourselves and instead forgive ourselves in that case, become a little bit more weightless, a little bit more light in order to create, to even feel again. And then you can feel again, you can cry again, you can be emotional again. And you're not numbing yourself and you're not suppressing yourself anymore. Now you're in touch with the feelings. That's where the identity can then be created from. That's where we can go to work on what are the new beliefs? What do we need to now reprogram in ourselves? Right? You speak about this at length inside of your communities. And then we go, hey, from the self-image, let's go and set a couple of rocks, a couple of quarterly objectives. Let's make a fucking powerful decision. And one framework that comes to mind as I'm talking now is I think Tim Ferriss popularized it. I think it was Stoicism, but it was simply just what is the decision that you need to make? What can come from it that's good? What can happen that's bad? And then what happens if you do nothing 3 months, 6 months, 12 months from now? Because I really think that a lot of us aren't taking the actions right now at the youthful age that we're at that can set us up for the generational wealth and change the trajectory of our ancestors, change the trajectory of our family. And it comes down to because we are stuck and programmed in fear and in scarcity instead of abundance, freedom. And we get to make that powerful decision to do whatever it is that we need to do and take massive, decisive action on that, and know that you're supported. And if you don't feel supported, go and join a supportive network. That'll be there. Don't isolate and lone wolf yourself, right, into isolation, and be in this supportive place. And so this way, that is the foundation. Then it goes into your leadership skills and your systems and your ability to set realistic priorities and not overwhelm the fuck out of everyone in the company so that they feel clear and clean and excited. And this way you can harness their desires. You can harness their energy and their unlimited potential. And so that's it. I'm always trying to harness my own desire, live in a state of flow and not force, a state of play, not pressure, right? I look at things in these two different ways. There's always an opposite, right? It's either pressure or play. It's either force or flow, right? So I'm looking at this so I can just be in this more relaxed and relieved state. And so I can stay on my game, so I can stay in the zone. That's really what I'm working on. And that's what I hope that you guys take away from listening to this. And I appreciate you for listening up to this point. Thank you.
Man, this was great. That was a hell of a recap. And guys, if you need help with systems, if you need help with VAs, scaling your business, all that stuff, we work with Brian here. He's incredible. If they want to learn more about that, where should they go?
I can go to virtualassistants.io, or you can just message me on Instagram at Brian Donovan with 2 underscores at the end. Just send me a message.
Amazing.
Thank you, Andrew.
Yeah. Thank you so much, man.